Hello everyone and welcome back to my Warhammer 40k guides. I am Brady and today I would like to talk about why I feel the Warhammer 40k community has a hard time accurately assessing the overall strength of an army and why people throw around the word overpowered more than they should. I know this topic might be getting a little old for you guys since I've talked about it a few times, but there's still things I'd like to say that I feel need to be said. I also know that some people are going to assume this video is an attempt at me making a scapegoat for my Drukhari army and how I still claim that they aren't overpowered or that I'm refusing to acknowledge that they are actually overpowered. But I can assure you that that isn't the case. I will always admit when I think something is broken or overpowered, even if it's an army I currently play. If you were around in the early days of the channel during the beginning of 8th edition, I spammed Malefic Lords in my Chaos army, but admitted they were overpowered and that I couldn't wait for them to be changed. So yes, I do admit when one of my armies or units are too strong or overpowered when I feel that they actually are. I am making this video because I have noticed some comments in our community on Reddit and YouTube videos of people who seem to not know how to accurately judge the strength of an army and sometimes claim some things are overpowered when in actuality they really aren't in my opinion. The definition of overpowered is subjective. So your definition can be different from my definition, which makes this a delicate topic of discussion. But for my definition of what overpowered means in Warhammer 40k, I think it's something that is so broken that it's literally impossible to counter or beat outside of mirror matches, or something that abuses a mechanic that is way too strong and not counterable like old Smite spam. So now that you know my definition of what overpowered is and why I'm making this video, let's just jump into it and discuss why I think the community has a hard time accurately assessing an army's strength and if they are overpowered or not. So like I mentioned earlier, there are quite a few comments from different places on the internet that inspired this video. Normally I would just use anecdotes in my videos from these types of comments that inspire me to make a video, but I've recently been getting slack from some members of our community for not posting sources, and was even accused of making up these anecdotes in my videos to apparently push a hidden agenda that I have. This really surprised the hell out of me, but I guess people will make conspiracy theories about anything, including a Warhammer 40k YouTuber who puts out videos to help the community. So where do I begin? Let's start with something I noticed in the past couple of days. I watched a battle report on Mini Wargaming's YouTube channel with Mini Wargamer Quirk playing his Harlequins against a Salamanders player. Long story short, Quirk ends up winning the game in a dominating fashion and chaos ensues in the comments. Here's a couple of the most liked comments on the YouTube video. So tired of Harlequins. The new codex is ridiculous how much they can do to affect the opposing army. They need some points increases or something. Another comment is, I'm done with 40k. The armies are unbalanced. Thanks Mini Wargaming for showing me not to play this game anymore. So these people and a few others in the comment section are claiming that Harlequins are too strong and not balanced after watching this battle report, with one of these people claiming that Harlequins need points increases while the other player is saying that they want to quit the game altogether because of how strong Harlequins are. These people never used the word overpowered, but it's pretty much implied that's what they think in their comments. Now let's compare this to some of the comments I received on my battle report of Drukhari versus Harlequins, where my Drukhari came out as the victor. The cheesiest current army versus a middle tier hardly force that attacks into poison casting mob. Sarcastic? Yeah. Another comment was, it was competitive, from one side. The Harlequins had hardly a competitive build and gameplay. There was also a person who replied that there was only one competitive list to another player who commented, referring to the Drukhari list as the only competitive army. So as you can see from these comments, in one battle report where the Harlequins won, they were deemed too strong or overpowered. But in the battle report where they lost, people were saying that the list wasn't that good and that the army is a middle tier army at best. So why do we have such varying opinions on the army that is pretty much the same? If you look at the army that Quirk used in his game and the army that Ryan used in my battle report, they are basically close to being the same list, except Quirk has more units and points spent for a bigger army. So other than the size of the game, the armies were extremely similar. But even though the lists were that similar, in the video with Quirk, people were saying his list was too strong and power gamey, while people in my bat rep were claiming that Ryan's list was bad and not competitive at all, while both lists were extremely similar. So what can we conclude from this? I think it's safe to say that people are having a hard time accurately perceiving the strength of the Harlequins and other armies for that matter. In the example I gave, we have two similar Harlequin armies, two different games, except in one game the Harlequins dominate and in the other game they get dominated. And we get two completely different sides of the spectrum when it comes to opinions on the strength of the army in the comments of each video. So why could this be? One could argue that this is just the food chain of Warhammer 40k, and that Drukhari is greater than Harlequins, who are greater than vanilla Marines. So in a sense, Harlequins are overpowered compared to Space Marines, while Drukhari is overpowered compared to Harlequins, but personally, I feel this isn't the case, which I will explain more later. Another reason for why I think there are vastly different opinions on the army is that the people commenting are at vastly different skill levels and have different levels of knowledge about the armies or competitive 40k as a whole. And they might also have different biases from different experiences with the army, whether it be through watching battle reports or playing with them or against them, which may affect the way they perceive the army's strength. Some players make armies seem stronger than they actually are if they play the game at a high level compared to their opponent or local community, while other players might make an army look bad if they aren't as good as the people in their community and if they always lose. I think the biggest contributing factor to winning a game of 40k is the skill level of each player involved, which is something I see a lot of people disregard. I've seen more people put emphasis on the armies being the bigger factor, when in reality I truly think it's the skill of the players. And yes, being able to build a better structured list with your army does fit into the category of being a better player. This is why you might have some people who think Ultramarines are overpowered because the best player in their community happens to play Ultramarines and because he beats everyone in the community all the time. Or why some people might see Harlequins as bad because the player they watched in a battle report or played against loses every game. This would give them the wrong impression, especially if they didn't understand what makes the skilled player win and what makes the unskilled player lose, and if they just assumed it was the armies that controlled the victory condition and not the player's skill level. And here is where we discover a problem. How is a person supposed to spot the mistakes or good plays that led to the victory or loss when they firmly believe it's the army that wins and not the skill level of the opponents? That's because I think these people commenting don't understand the difference between good tactics and bad tactics, and that they aren't even aware of it, which is why they blame the armies. Have you guys ever heard of the Dunning-Kruger effect? Here's the definition. In the field of psychology, the Dunning-Kruger effect is a cognitive bias in which people of low ability have an illusionary superiority and mistakenly assess their cognitive ability as greater than it is. So that's a mouthful. So to break it down in layman's terms, what the Dunning-Kruger effect is, it's basically people whose knowledge and perception of the world is based off of their own experiences and capabilities, which are normally at an average level for most people, which gives them the mindset of, if I can't do it, it must not be possible, while not realizing that there might be more educated, skilled, or experienced people in the world who are capable of things that they can't even imagine being possible themselves. For example, if I asked you if it was possible to jump 5 feet in the air from a standing position without you being able to search Google for the answer, you'd probably tell me it's not possible, or at least that you thought it wasn't possible because you can't do it and because you've never seen or heard of anyone doing it. And also because that really does seem impossible when you think about it. After all, 5 feet is basically almost the height of some people. And just thinking about it, I'd be lucky if I was to get over a foot of vertical from a standing jump. But if I introduced you to Kadur Ziani, a professional dunker from Slam Nation according to Google, he would prove you wrong and show you that it is possible to jump 5 feet in the air from a standing position. This is the Dunning-Kruger effect, a person thinking something isn't possible just because they can't discover a way to do it themselves and refuse to acknowledge the fact that maybe it is possible, but that it's just them that are not capable of it themselves because of either a lack of knowledge or skill depending on the situation. And because they're not knowledgeable about the situation, they don't realize that they lack the skill or the knowledge on the situation. So basically what I'm trying to get at with so many words without trying to be mean is that a good amount of people in our community suffer from this type of mindset, or at least it seems so to me. Because I personally know for a fact that armies like Drukhari and Harlequins aren't overpowered because I'm aware of how to beat them and how to counter them, and I know that they can easily lose against higher tier armies like tier 1 and tier 2 armies depending on the list, how the game goes, and the skill of the players involved. I know this because I've gotten very close to losing games with my Drukhari list, but because I played the game more tactically than my opponent, or because I got lucky, or a combination of both, I was able to pull out those wins. I was aware of this because I know what good tactics are and what bad tactics are. But to other people who aren't aware of what good or bad tactics are, or aren't aware of how to beat Drukhari, to them it might seem like Drukhari is only winning because it's overpowered. So honestly, I think a lot of people just have this mindset of, because my army can't do it, it's impossible, without considering maybe their list needs to be worked on, or even their tactics. A lot of people are first to blame the armies or lists before they blame themselves or their tactics. To be fair, the lists do have a big part in it, but when it comes to armies in general, I still firmly believe that almost, and I repeat, almost any army can beat any army outside of counters. Because yes, some armies just straight counter other armies. I know that people think like this, and why they immediately blame the army instead of themselves is because I've done it myself. If you watch the battle report on Steve from Mini Wargaming's YouTube channel called Mountain Miniatures, you can see a game where I played my Grey Knights against his Necrons. You can see me use that same excuse at the end of the battle report. I'd said something along the lines of, well, my army wasn't built competitively, so that's why I lost. When in all honesty, I could have easily won that game had I not made a few errors that I found in hindsight while watching the battle report. But my ego got in the way because I thought I was better than I actually was at that point in time. A lot of people do this, and I think I can easily say we've all met someone who refuses that the reason they lost is because of tactics or skill difference, and instead want to blame it on balance. This happens in almost every competitive game. Some people just have a hard time accepting that maybe they might not be good enough and instead want to throw the blame on something they have no control over, like the army type or game balance. Some examples of this are like League of Legends, where some people blame their teammates as the reason for why they don't climb the ladder, or in Hearthstone, where people argue that it's RNG and bad luck which is the reason they don't climb the ladder, or in Warhammer 40k, where we have people who blame armies or balance as the reason they can't win tournaments. So that's how I feel. It's that I think some of the community, I don't want to say most and I definitely don't want to say all, but I feel safe saying that some of the community has this mindset and they call armies overpowered instead of taking the time to learn how to play against them or counter them, or that they just don't have the game knowledge or experience to know how to play against them and counter them. And because of how small our community is, it's not very easy to find places online that show you how to beat Drukhari or even talk about it. Honestly, my channel should be doing that, and I kind of failed you guys by not doing that sooner. So maybe in the future I will come out with a video, kind of like how I did with my how to beat a Guilliman list. I will come up with a video for how to beat a Drukhari list, because it seems the community needs that. Otherwise, I feel like a lot of people are just going to keep saying that the army is overpowered just because they can't figure out a way on how to beat it. But I can tell you that it is possible. I actually have a battle report that I'm currently editing of my second place Drukhari army against my buddy's Ultramarine army. And I don't want to spoil it too much, but I will say it was an insanely close game that could have gone either way. And I hope you guys check it out. Well anyways, that's going to cover it for this video. I could go on so much more about the balance of Drukhari. I could honestly talk for another 20 minutes about them. Enough to probably make another video. But to save you and myself some time, I'm going to cut it here. I think I've said mostly everything I wanted to say, and if I get some more comments of people claiming Drukhari is overpowered and that I didn't prove anything in this video, I will make another video dedicated to just discussing my thoughts on Drukhari and more reasons on why I think they are doing so well. Before you guys go though, check out the channel sponsor, themagnetbaron.com. They sell magnets for all sizes, they have magnetized flight stands, magnets for magnetized army trays, and even offer fully built magnetized models, all for a great price. So if you're looking into picking up some magnets for your hobbying, then check out themagnetbaron.com. The link is in the description. Well anyways, new bat rep coming out like I mentioned. I also am thinking about starting up a stream once a week of either myself or my patrons playing on Tabletop Simulator, so let me know what you guys think about that. Also, if you enjoyed the video or learned something, please hit that like button and subscribe for more Warhammer 40k content. And if you are already subscribed but would like to help support the channel even further, you can do so on Patreon. The link is in the description. I offer a list building service and even tournaments for my patrons, so check it out if that sounds like something that interests you. Anyways, thanks for watching the video and I will see you in the next one. Happy wargaming.